Hello, my name is Joe and welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to make a video, and this is my second video on the subject, but I wanted to make a video for GarbAugust 3.5, The Wasted Weekend. This is a BookTube event created by Ollie from Criminali. And I mentioned this is my second video for The Wasted Weekend. A couple weeks ago, I got my dates wrong and I read Flesh Gothic by Edward Lee. So if you'd like to check out my video on that, I'll go ahead and post a link up here. But for this past weekend, I also read another book for the actual Wasted Weekend, and that was Richard Laymon's Endless Night. I was going to go ahead for this, my second attempt at the Wasted Weekend. I was going to maybe try to find like an original splatterpunk book to read, maybe something by John Skip or one of the first couple Kathy Koja novels. But as I learned more about the difference between splatterpunk and extreme horror, I realized that splatterpunk books, though Richard Laymon sometimes is called a splatterpunk author, splatterpunk authors generally are trying to inject some sort of social commentary or something maybe a little bit beneath the surface to give reason to the extreme violence and sexuality in splatterpunk, whereas an extreme horror author is more just going for cheap thrills, for lack of a better term. And that's not to say that an author like Richard Laymon, if he's just going for thrills, is that's not a bad thing. But there is something different, I think, about an extreme horror author and a splatterpunk author. So I went ahead and I've always wanted to read a Richard Laymon novel. When I was in a bookstore, I didn't grab this off of my shelf. I actually bought this for this event, but I found at one of my used bookstores this book, and I was looking online, like what's his most extremely violent book, and most people said Endless Night was up there for him. So I'm glad I picked this one. Very, very trashy. So what is it about? It's the main character, Jody. She's a 16-year-old girl. She's in the first chapter. She's spending the night at her friend Evelyn's house. And in the house there are Evelyn's parents and her younger brother, 12-year-old Andy. Right in the first chapter, a group of psychopath serial killers break into the home and they kill the parents, kill Evelyn. None of this is spoilers. This is the first couple of chapters. And then Jody and Andy then spend the next several chapters in a gripping and thrilling sequence trying to escape from this group of killers. When I first started reading the book, it's about 450 pages. I thought, is the whole novel going to be just this one endless night? And of course, it's not that. It's called Endless Night because the events of this horrible day just carry on over the next few days, where the novel takes place over the course of a few days. And just right off the bat, though I generally don't like being thrown right into an action scene at the beginning of a novel, this was very well done. It was gripping. It was really exciting. The violence was biting. You felt when the character got hurt, you really felt it, and it was shocking. And then the novel switches gears in a very interesting way. After this kind of first night ends, we switch perspectives. The Jody chapters are third-person limited, covering Jody, but it alternates between then chapters from the point of view of one of the serial killers, Simon, and the chapters are kind of first-person perspective, and he is talking into a tape recorder. And we're listening to kind of his psychopathic ramblings as he's describing events, and then he goes into the history of the serial killer group that he's a part of, and that's all very fascinating and very entertaining in a very dark and twisted way. I do find it disturbing when an author can get into the mind of a total psychopath, and you see the world through their eyes, and it's effective. It's really disturbing and shocking. And then the history of the group's kind of fascinating. Of course, this is before kind of DNA testing was really a thing. So it's kind of interesting how they kind of come up with their crimes and how they don't get caught. Interesting in a shocking way, not necessarily a fun kind of way. But yeah, the first half of the book, we alternate between these two perspectives, and it's very well done. Then we get into the second half of the book, and I think this is where things start to break down a little bit. The pace, for me at least, in the second half noticeably slows down. I mean, this is a book that takes place only over a few days, and it feels much longer than that in the second half. We do get there's a kind of a family is formed around Jody, Andy, Jody's police officer father, and then another female police officer, Sharon. They kind of form this like makeshift family. And we spend a lot of time with them. They're kind of on the run. They go to a diner. They go shoot guns. And it's just, I feel like a lot of these chapters could have been condensed. Also, the Simon chapters, we follow him run around. And while there's some shocking and disturbing things that he does, again, some of it I feel like could have been cut out or condensed. We also get to the very end of the novel, the last 50 pages or so. There's an abrupt time jump where the characters experience a false ending of the story. Now, we as the reader know the story's not over. There's 50 pages left. There's going to be a big final showdown. But we don't experience kind of the false ending. And I had a problem with that. I with the time jump, the book tells us that the Simon tape recording chapters, Simon is an unreliable narrator, and we shouldn't necessarily trust everything he says. But we don't see the characters really feel that in real time, where their characters have to kind of explain what happened during the time jump in exposition. And I was left as the reader going, wait, did I miss something? Should I already kind of know this going in? I'm trying to play catch up here, and I'm finding as I'm becoming maybe a more critical reader that I don't like that feeling. I don't like when an author moves ahead in time and the characters know more than you do as the reader, because sometimes I feel like, is this the author purposefully keeping me in the dark, or have I zoned out somewhere and am I missing some detail which I should know in the story? And I don't like that feeling. Also, in the true ending of the book, the last 50 pages or so, that kind of family element that we spent time with building doesn't seem to be that important. I mean, especially the Sharon character. Minor spoiler here, the Sharon character is not present in the ending. And it's like, well, why was she around in the first place? I mean, it's one thing if the author maybe is building towards it's going to go this way, and then we subvert the reader's expectations in an interesting way. But this doesn't feel like that. This feels like an abrupt shift, which just was very jarring to me. Having said that, there was some character elements, particularly in the Andy character, that did happen in these kind of slow chapters. We get the sense that Andy is developing. He has this interesting relationship with Jody. She becomes kind of a replacement older sister. But she's also maybe his first romantic interest in life. And he starts to experience a little bit of romance, a little bit of lust. And that is very interesting. And thinking back on your preteen self, like there's some relatable feelings there. What gets twisted about it is that this relationship was formed under a very traumatic and violent event, the murder of the rest of his family. So we get little hints that is Andy becoming interested in violence and disturbing things, and there is a payoff to that. So that's very interesting. So while many readers may say that Richard Laymon, he writes too much about sex, he's too much interested in like the female form, and he kind of leers on his female characters. And while that may feel a bit icky in this situation because the lead female character is 16 years old, she's underage, I think it works in the story. This is also my first Richard Laymon novel, so maybe I'm not just worn out yet by his focus on sexuality. So I thought it was important in the story, and the sexuality between Jody and Andy, it is a reflection upon the very dark and disturbing sexuality of these psychopathic killers. As you can imagine, when they kill a family, they can do whatever they want to their poor victims. So there is like this kind of shadowy, mirrory reflection. Though the book doesn't kind of linger on these ideas, they're present, kind of beneath the surface. So there is something, to the sexuality. Overall, though there is some interesting things in the second half of the book, there is still a sense of, with this abrupt time jump, things don't quite come together. The ending does feel a little loose and scattered to me, with one exception. There is we do get a payoff with the Andy character, which is interesting, but we also get another very thrilling and suspenseful scene that did have me on the edge of my seat, and I was starting to feel some anxiety. There's a scene where Jody is in a house by herself, or not by herself. She's alone in the house late at night. Everyone else is sleeping, and she's thinking, as many people, if you get up in the night to go to the bathroom or grab a drink or something, you're always thinking, oh, let me not be too loud, let me not wake anybody up. Your mind starts to wander, and then you hear a noise, and you think, wait, what was that? Is there someone else awake? And then your mind goes back to thinking about something else, and then you hear another noise, and you start to creep yourself out. There's a very good sequence, a whole chapter where it's that feeling, and it's very well done. So you get, between those two between that chapter and then the entire beginning of the book, I think that's worth the price of admission. That's very well done, and it shows me that, though I have problems with this book, though it's not perfect, though it's way too long, I think you could have chopped out probably at least 100 pages. I will absolutely read more Richard Laymon. I was entertained enough to check out more from this author. But yeah, so Richard Laymon, Endless Night. I do find it fairly trashy. I'm glad I picked this one and picked another leisure horror. But yeah, that's all for now. If you've read this, if you've read Endless Night, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. And also, if you've read any other Richard Laymon, let me know, and I'll give me suggestions on what else to read by him. But yeah, that's all for now. Thank you.